When I opened the door to my son's back room, I discovered an incredible secret about my daughter. Mary took a deep breath as she reached for the knob of the door to Jacob's back room, heart racing with curiosity. This space had always been off limits. "It's just messy," he'd say whenever she brought it up, his tone dismissive. But today she felt a pull she couldn't ignore. When the door creaked open, the world she stepped into was nothing short of breathtaking, a hidden art studio breathing with life and vibrancy. The walls were alive with color, full of portraits showcasing the town's unsung heroes, veterans, caregivers, and the elderly documenting history's passage. She felt a swell of pride, accompanied by a pang of fear. What did this mean for Jacob? Would his talent matter in their struggling town? Quick flashes of her own worries about bills and groceries coursed through her. Would this art fill their fridge? The implications were as bright as the colors on the canvas before her, but equally shadowed by reality. In the kitchen, Lily sat hunched over college applications, a half-eaten breakfast forgotten beside her. A quick glance at her daughter's slumped shoulders tugged at Mary's heartstrings. Jacob's spotlight, bright, bold, had ignited a quiet storm. Lily felt overlooked, like a shadow cast by her older brother's newfound talent. As Mary moved deeper into Jacob's world, she sensed a distance growing between her and Lily, a shroud of unspoken emotions hanging thick in the air. "Mom, look!" Jacob's excited voice sliced through her thoughts as he joined her in the studio. His eyes sparkled. He revealed that he had submitted his work to the town's prestigious art exhibit. Mary felt her heart race with a mixture of pride and trepidation. "That's amazing, honey," she breathed, but doubt gnawed at her insides. The looming reality of their town's economy shadowed her excitement. Before she could catch her breath, the tension escalated as word spread that a wealthy benefactor was backing the exhibit, drawing scrutinizing eyes. Should they ride this wave of privilege? They prided themselves on hard work and merit, values as strong as the heartland they lived in. Emotions surged, pride fighting against principles. Standing at the precipice of this moral dilemma, the weight of expectations felt crushing. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The exhibit day approached faster than she anticipated. Mary felt an urgent need to gather her children and have a heart-to-heart, staring into their eyes as if searching for their souls amid the tempest. How could they celebrate Jacob's talent without dimming Lily's light? As they prepared to step into the crowd, the tension pulsed, a heavy silence settling around them. Just as the doors swung open, a murmur rippled through the room, a community member's comment stinging. With the air thick with anticipation and uncertainty, Mary held her children's hands tightly, ready to confront not only societal expectations, but also what it truly meant to lift each other up. Would they emerge from this as a stronger family, or would expectations tear them apart, just as they stood at the edge of their dreams? Mary could hardly breathe as she entered the exhibit hall. The air was electric. Voices buzzed, laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses, but all she could focus on was the enormous canvas bearing Jacob's name. She felt both proud and worried about her daughters standing beside her, feeling overshadowed, invisible. Lily shifted her weight from one foot to the other, her eyes darting over the gathered crowd, searching for someone, anyone, who might notice her too. With each step toward Jacob's painting, the anxiety thickened. Mary knew that every gaze on that masterpiece would cast shadows on Lily's accomplishments, her sacrifices. The blinding lights illuminated Jacob's artwork, but they dimmed the vibrant hues of Lily's spirit. Mary felt a lump form in her throat, realizing that the proud moment was tainted with fear, the fear that success for one child could mean neglect for the other. "Isn't it amazing?" Jacob's voice sparkled, but there was a tremor beneath his enthusiasm. As he beamed proudly at his work, Mary saw how much this moment meant to him, how he craved recognition, not just for himself, but as his family's artist. Yet, as he filled with confidence, Lily's expressions dulled, the light in her eyes flickering like a candle caught in a storm.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Lily forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes as she looked at her brother's artwork. Really impressive, Jacob. Her voice cracked slightly, yet beneath the surface, Mary detected a heavy resignation. Jacob didn't notice. He was too busy explaining the inspiration behind each stroke of paint. Mary wanted to make it all better, to assure Lily she was just as important, just as worthy of applause. But how could she shout over the crowd without drawing attention away from Jacob? "Do you want me to grab us some drinks?" Mary asked Lily, hoping to create a small space between them and the overwhelming attention Jacob was receiving. Lily nodded, her silent gratitude heavy in the air. As Mary walked toward the refreshment table, she caught snippets of conversations, comments about Jacob's future, his talent, what this could mean for the family. The words whirled in her head, amplifying her unease.
The world seemed to say that success was a limited resource, that only one child could occupy that brightly lit space. When she returned with 3 glasses of punch, she found Jacob surrounded by admirers, his laughter spilling over as he shared stories of his creative process. It was beautiful to witness indeed, but there was a lonely distance etched in Lily's expression as she stood a step away from the circle, watching in silence. "Come on, let's get a picture together." Jacob's excitement burst forth, and his friends obliged, taking their phones out. Mary felt the weight of the moment. Jacob wanted them all to celebrate together, but where did that leave Lily? With a gentle squeeze of her daughter's hand, Mary whispered, "You matter too, more than you know." As the camera clicked, capturing the joy radiating from Jacob, Mary felt Lily press her hand back just a little, a flicker of connection in that spark of anxiety. It was a quiet moment, a promise amidst the chaos. Suddenly, a voice shouted from the back of the room, "Hey, isn't that the kid whose art is being funded by that big benefactor?" The air shifted as the comment rippled through the crowd, sparking murmurs. Mary's heart sank. She could sense the judgment. The straining smile on Jacob's face tightened, and Lily's shoulders dropped further. Would this moment, which was supposed to bond them, turn into a dividing line instead? With the murmur growing louder, the tension was palpable. Would they manage to navigate this storm together, or would societal expectations rip them apart just as they started to embrace their strengths? As Mary looked back at her children, she realized they were standing on a precipice. Would their love and support for one another sustain them when the next wave came crashing? The moment held its breath, waiting for a decision, a direction. "Jacob," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk." Jacob turned to Mary, his excitement from moments ago vanishing like mist in the morning sun. "What? Mom, let's revel in this." His joyous aura was quickly overshadowed by a wave of confusion. In that instant, he was no longer the artist basking in praise. He was her son, searching for answers amidst the chaos. "I know, honey, but—" Mary glanced at Lily, who was still standing apart, her small frame seemingly shrinking as the whispers began to form a thick fog around them. She felt the burn of tears behind her eyes, but fought to keep it together. "I just think we need to walk a minute, clear our heads." Jacob's brow knitted in concern, and his gaze slid toward Lily, who pretended to fiddle with the fringe of her sweater. Mary could feel her daughter's urgency, could hear the unspoken words begging for someone to notice the weight she carried. "Okay, fine," Jacob relented, attempting to mask his disappointment, though the shadows of his smile didn't escape Mary's notice. The 3 of them stepped away from the crowd and into a quieter corner, the thrum of celebration still echoing faintly behind them. "Are you okay, Lily?" Mary asked gently, sliding in closer, desperate to let her child know she was seen. "I'm fine." Lily's response was clipped, sharper than Mary anticipated. It sent a pang through Mary's heart. She could hear the strain in Lily's voice. It was a familiar tone, one she had heard countless times during quieter days, those moments when the siblings' differences seemed to chatter louder than their love. "Listen," Jacob began, the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders too. I never expected all of this. It's overwhelming. I wanted you to be proud, both of you. Please, don't think I'm happy at your expense." Mary's heart twisted. She felt the love between them, yet it was tangled with so many unspoken words. "It's not about that, Jacob. We love you. We're proud, but—" "But what?" Lily interjected, her composure cracking. Her eyes flicked between Jacob and Mary, betrayal and hurt painting her features. "I just thought, maybe if we talked about how proud I am of both of you, but I don't want it to feel like one of you is more important than the other. You both shine, just in different ways." Mary pushed back the tears, hoping her voice stayed strong. Jacob's face softened.
I don't want you to feel overshadowed, Lily. You create, you... He hesitated, then found the words. You've always had your own spark. I know, she whispered, glancing down as shame unraveled her earlier resolve. But I'm not the one in the spotlight. But you will be, Mary rushed to say, wanting to catch that flicker of determination in Lily. You have your own gifts, and it's important to nurture them. I see you, Lily. I'm just not like Jacob, Lily's voice trembled. I'm not an artist. I'm just me. At that moment, the air felt heavy, as if everyone was holding their breath. It took Mary back to countless evenings when she'd find Lily lost in books rather than paint, crafting stories instead of images. Both were art. Both filled the world with light, yet somehow they were losing touch amongst the chaos. Then we'll find your light, Jacob replied softly, his expression earnest. What do you want to do? Show us. Honestly? Lily hesitated, a flicker of hope amongst uncertainty. I want to create a community garden. A pause. Then, as realization settled in, Jacob responded, A garden? That would be so amazing. Mary felt the relief wash over her. This was it, a moment of connection amongst the turmoil they had been grappling with. Yes, you both can do this together. As Lily's smile returned, brighter than any spotlight could offer, Mary's heart swelled with love for her children. The storm still rumbled outside, but they had found a glimpse of hope amongst the chaos. Let's make this happen, together, Jacob affirmed, reaching out to squeeze Lily's hand.
But as the atmosphere lightened, a sharp voice pierced the joyful bubble they had woven. What? A garden? Is that supposed to compete with his masterpiece? The crowd had shifted again, eyes darting back toward them, judgment lingering like fog. Mary's heart sank in an instant. Had they stepped out of one storm only to enter another? How would they support each other against the world's expectations? And in that moment, she realized that simply showing up was not enough. How far would they need to go to defend one another? How fierce would love have to become to withstand scrutiny? Let's show them, she said, igniting a new flame inside her. Let's prove them wrong. As they stood there, hand in hand, a fire ignited. An ambiguous battle lay ahead, yet the promise of something beautiful lingered. But what would it mean to struggle against not just the outside world, but against each other too? The laughter and chatter from the gathering behind them faded into the background as Mary clenched her fists, determination coursing through her. The whispers that lingered in the air felt sharp and biting, and she could sense the weight of judgment pressing down on her family. They don't understand what this means to us, she murmured, mostly to herself, but she knew Jacob and Lily could hear her quiet resolve. Lily, what's your vision for the garden? Jacob asked, shifting his focus and drawing Lily back into the moment. He beamed with enthusiasm, eager to shift the narrative. Where do you want to plant everything? Lily's eyes lit up a little. Well, I was thinking about a section for flowers, but also vegetables like tomatoes and carrots. We could even have a little herb corner for mint and basil. The passion began to ignite within her, and it felt like the flicker of a flame refusing to be snuffed out. That sounds amazing, Jacob encouraged, and for a second, her hesitation melted away. Mary took a deep breath, reminded of the countless times they'd shared dreams together as a family. As they spoke, ideas began to emerge, painting a vivid picture against the dreariness surrounding them. And we can teach the neighborhood about gardening, Lily added, her voice gaining strength. It could really bring people together. Everyone has something to share. Mary saw her daughter unfold just a little, the shadows that had clouded her soul momentarily receding. That's right. You're not just creating for you. You're giving something valuable back. Exactly, Jacob nodded, his eyes sparkling. Community, connection, everyone working together. It's beautiful. The moment, however short, felt transformative. Just as they were starting to unify in their family bond, the voice from the crowd broke in again, sharper this time. And what will that give you both? A garden may look good, but it's not going to make headlines like this one. The speaker was a young influencer, well known for her biting remarks. Every eye turned to them, curious, judgmental. The threat loomed larger than ever. For a moment, a heaviness hung in the air. Mary felt it deep in her chest, like stone. Her instincts kicked in, reminding her that their bond must stay strong. Ignore them, she whispered, but her heart raced. What's important is what we think of ourselves, not what they say, Jacob said, bravely meeting Lily's gaze. Lily, your dream is just as important as anything I've done. It deserves to be celebrated. Maybe we can organize a small potluck to get people involved, Lily suggested, slowly but surely reclaiming her spark. We can drum up excitement, get them focused on us instead of the comparison. Yes, exactly, Jacob exclaimed, meeting her enthusiasm. An event that showcases both our passions. Your garden, my artwork, together they can shine. Pieces began to come together as they considered how to dispel the gossip and redirect attention to something more meaningful. Their plan began to take shape in vibrant hues, a beautiful tapestry woven not just from their creative desires, but from a deep desire to support one another, no matter the judgment that lay ahead. I'm proud of you both, Mary said, a warm smile breaking through her tension. Let's meet next week, make a list of what we need, and share our ideas with the community. This is what we will do. Together. Just then, a sudden gust of wind rustled the leaves overhead, a warning sign of storms approaching. Mary looked around the chaos and noticed the crowd was beginning to murmur again, rising frustration unfolding amid their local audience. Are you really going to let them take this away from you? From us? Jacob urged, now fully awake to the stakes. Suddenly, Mary felt the urgency building, the world nudging them to act. Would the whispers push them to retreat or drive them forward? Heart pounding, Mary stood at that same edge again, the decision always looming. What would happen if they genuinely stood their ground together, told their story, and embraced the conflicts ahead? Together we're stronger, she declared, and as they held hands, a plan ignited. But was it truly enough to shield them from the storm brewing both inside and out? The next week felt like a whirlwind, each day more frenetic than the last as they prepared for the potluck. Their excitement battled with the undercurrent of dread from outside. Mary could sense the tension in the air, a fragile thread that could snap at any moment. As they gathered around the kitchen table, ideas flowed like water, each suggestion from Jacob and Lily lighting up their shared space. We need colorful decorations, Jacob declared, his enthusiasm infectious. Bright flowers and maybe some homemade signs, Lily added, bouncing in her chair. Her face glowed with the warmth of possibility, her earlier hesitations fading like morning mist. Mary smiled, her heart swelling with hope.
And let's set up a little art corner, she suggested, her thoughts drifting to Jacob's recent sculptures. We can showcase your work right alongside the garden. It's all part of who we are. They rattled through the list, their laughter echoing against the kitchen walls as they crafted the beginnings of something special. Yet deep within, Mary sensed a storm brewing, one that mirrored the swelling clouds outside. As they finalized preparations the day before the potluck, Lily and Jacob went to hang flyers around the neighborhood. Mary stayed behind, feeling the weight of their small sanctuary filled with memories and dreams. The community had gradually started to flip from curious whispers to open hostility. It was as if everything they cherished was being actively challenged. The late afternoon sunlight streamed in as she glanced out the window, watching her children walk towards the heart of their neighborhood. They were so brave, carrying ideas like banners against the oncoming storm. Suddenly, the doorbell chimed loudly, shattering her reverie. She opened the door to find Mrs. Thompson, their neighbor, standing with crossed arms and an expression that screamed disapproval. "They're going to laugh at you," Mrs. Thompson declared, her voice a harsh whisper. "Don't you see? You really think this garden will matter?" Mary clenched her jaw, the familiar weight of judgment pressing down on her again. "This isn't just about a garden," she replied, her voice steady. "It's about our family, our community. We need connection, something real. You should think long and hard before you embarrass your children." With that, she turned and left, leaving Mary standing in the doorway, vulnerable. Mary's heart ached, the harsh words echoing in her mind. She stood at the threshold, feeling a mixture of anger and fear. What if Mrs. Thompson was right? What if they were doomed to fail? But then she pictured Lily's face, the way it lit up when she spoke of her garden, and Jacob, his enthusiasm contagious, his artwork always reaching for something greater. This wasn't just a garden, it was a dream unfolding. Later that night, Mary found herself pacing in the dim light of the living room. Her children were nestled in their beds, and silence enveloped the house. Her phone buzzed with notifications, everyone discussing their potluck tomorrow, the anticipation palpable. But along with excitement, doubt crept in. What if no one showed up? What if it turned into a joke for others to poke fun at? But every time she teetered on the edge of despair, she felt a flicker of hope, a small reminder that they were trying to create something beautiful from a place of love, something that couldn't be measured by others. As she leaned against the kitchen counter, her heart racing, she resolved that they must face whatever storm was coming together. Could they truly change minds and create bonds stronger than harsh judgments? Determined, she pulled out a piece of paper and began writing down the things they would need for the potluck, hoping the growing list would fill the void of uncertainty. But deep inside, a nagging question remained. Would their courage be enough to stand against the very real storm of doubt and misunderstanding lurking at their door? Tomorrow would reveal it all, but was she ready for what it might bring? The sun rose the next day, casting a golden light that danced across the garden. Mary pulled back the curtains, taking in the lush colors outside. It looked like a painting, a perfect backdrop for the potluck. As she moved through the house, a sense of purpose began to blanket her nerves. Today was more than just a gathering. It was a statement, a confirmation of who they could be as a family and a community. Jacob and Lily awakened with infectious energy. "Mom, is it time?" Jacob exclaimed, bouncing on his toes. "Almost," she replied, trying to hide her fluttering heart. They had a long day ahead. The kitchen buzzed as they made last-minute preparations. Pancakes sizzled on the stove, while Mary layered on the toppings, fresh fruit, whipped cream, and even a drizzle of chocolate for a treat. She felt the warmth spread through her as she watched the kids engaging in playful banter. Laughter filled the air, but in the back of her mind, doubt stirred like a storm cloud. By noon, the garden was transformed. Colorful streamers waved in the brisk wind, and inside the wooden gazebo, Jacob's sculptures gleamed, reflecting the sunlight. It was more inviting than she could have hoped. Every flower and handcrafted sign spoke of love and hope, stilling her worries, if just for a moment. As guests began to arrive, anxiety twisted in her stomach. They were mostly neighbors she hadn't sensed the whispers started gaining volume. Would they come to judge or to learn? Mary stood by the entrance, greeting people with a smile she hoped to look natural. Lily practically bounced beside her, waving to everyone, her excitement like a gentle breeze. As familiar faces flooded in, friends, old acquaintances, even those who had remained silent until now, Mary drew courage from being surrounded by her children's joy. Midway through, she caught a glimpse of Mrs. Thompson standing at the edge of the garden, her face twisted with disdain. Just as quickly, Mary focused on Jacob and Lily, their laughter ringing like music in her ears. They were alive, vibrant, shining, and no amount of negativity would overshadow that. Around the potluck, stories began to flow. Neighbors shared memories, complimenting the artistry of Jacob's sculptures while contrasting them with the humble beauty of the garden. As people began mingling and taking bites of delicious food, laughter spiraled upwards to meet the sun above.
But in the midst of this golden hour, Mary noticed a couple she hadn't expected, Bill and Caroline, newcomers in the neighborhood who had been merely polite, not engaging much. They stood to one side, whispering words to one another. Her heart raced. Were they gossiping too? "Come on, let's show them the garden," Lily suggested, grabbing her brother's hand. As they approached, Mary felt her heart pounding in her chest, the tension of the morning threatening to surge back up. "Hello," she called out, forcing a warm smile. Bill glanced up, eyes bright, and stepped forward. "We wanted to see what all the excitement was about. Looks like you have quite the gathering here." Caroline nodded, her gaze sweeping over the decorations. "Absolutely beautiful. Really, it's inspiring," she said, softer than Mary had anticipated. Before she could respond, the moment shifted. Jacob interjected, brimming with enthusiasm. "You should see the garden up close," he led them, eyes sparkling with pride. Mary held her breath as they moved. Would this be a turning point? Could they find common ground? As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting shadows across the yard, she felt the atmosphere shift. Conversations deepened, curiosity grew, laughter echoed louder. But just as clouds can turn, an uneasy feeling rushed in. Could acceptance turn to rejection just as abruptly? Mary caught sight of Mrs. Thompson again, standing apart with a stern expression. Hesitation flickered in her gut. The conflict between acceptance and judgment loomed above them, an invisible tension that threatened to drown their moment of joy. As the potluck continued, Mary felt a surge of determination. Their joy, outshining the doubts surrounding them, could withstand the storm, but could her heart? And then, just as hope began to blossom, she noticed Jacob gesturing wildly, his eyes wide. "You won't believe what we found in the back room," he called. An incredulous hush fell over the crowd, all eyes turning toward him. What had he discovered? The potluck transformed into something far bigger than she ever imagined. But would it carry the weight of joy, or the burden of secrets waiting to unfold?
His grin widened as he pointed toward the back of the house, inviting everyone to follow. "Come on, it's amazing!" Mary took a deep breath, pushing aside her concerns for the moment. Her legs felt heavy, as if they were dragging something unspoken behind them. As she moved toward the house, she caught a glimpse of Mrs. Thompson, standing utterly still. An ancient, hard line marked her brow, her lips pressed into a thin, unforgiving line. The older woman wouldn't judge her family's mishaps lightly. Mary could feel the weight of her judgment squeezing tighter. Inside the house, Jacob led them down the hallway. Sunlight flickered in through the windows, illuminating the dust motes floating like tiny stars in the air. Mary met the soft glow with a mix of pride and worry. They all gathered in front of the door to Jacob's back room, their eyes fixed on him. "It's here," he announced breathlessly, slapping the door open with a flourish. The hinges creaked, and Mary felt a flutter of apprehension. The room was a chaotic masterpiece. Paintbrushes lay scattered around open cans of vibrant colors, and canvases leaned against the walls, each one decorated with strokes of bold imagination. But most striking of all was the canvas that dominated the floor, half finished but radiating passion and energy. There, amidst wild color splashes, stood an image of Lily, her figure crafted from dusk and dawn, hope and resilience. A gasp echoed from Caroline, which prompted a chorus of awe from the others. "Oh my," she murmured, stepping closer to examine the work. Lily's eyes shone with wonder. "That's me," she exclaimed, bouncing on her toes. "Jacob, how did you—" "I've been painting you for weeks. You just looked so powerful and happy." Jacob's voice swelled with pride, but his eyes darted to Mary, seeking reassurance that she would approve. Mary felt the room close in with warmth, a tide of emotion flooding over her. The simple piece, full of color and life, was a portrait of their family, of everything they had overcome and gathered in this garden of dreams. But then her heart sank slightly. Amidst the joy, it hinted at the truth of what had been left unsaid, the worries, the whispers, the burdens they were all carrying. "What do you think, Mary? It's remarkable, isn't it?" Bill was leaning closer, admiration etched on his face. "Yes, it's beautiful," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Truly beautiful." The moment teetered on the edge of something remarkable. Laughter filtered through the doorway from the potluck, and for a sliver of time, Mary felt as if acceptance was within reach. But Mrs. Thompson's presence still lingered, an uninvited shadow. Just as smiles began to bloom, a clatter erupted from the garden, followed by a sharp scream. Mary whirled around, her gut tightening as she rushed toward the commotion. "What happened?" Mrs. Thompson's voice sliced through the air, brittle and unyielding. "What on earth are you doing?"
"This is a disgrace!" Mary felt the weight of the world gather on her shoulders again. Acceptance and rejection were battling it out, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Could she secure both her family's joy and fend off the growing storm? As she moved closer to the doorway, she caught Jacob and Lily's apprehensive glances. Were they ready for the setback? Would Mrs. Thompson's negativity extinguish the vibrant spark their art had created? And as triumph turned to turmoil, one question echoed louder than all others. How much longer could they withstand the storm? Mary rushed through the doorway, her heart thudding in her chest. The cheerful chatter of the potluck seemed to fade into a distant hum as the chaos outside drew her attention. She found herself in the garden, where the celebration had quickly turned into a scene of concern. A few adults were huddled around a toppled table. The vibrant fruits that had barely been enjoyed now lay scattered across the ground, splattering onto the grass like a burst of color gone awry. The air was thick with uncertainty. Mary saw Jacob standing near the edge, his expression a mix of shock and guilt. Lily stood close to him, clenching her fist at her side, worry etching her young brows. "What happened?" Mary couldn't keep the panic from her voice as she approached Jacob, scanning the crowd for Mrs. Thompson. "She tripped," Jacob managed, his voice a thin whisper. The weight of the moment hung heavy around them, as if the laughter from seconds ago had been sucked away. Mary turned her gaze to Mrs. Thompson, who was now dusting herself off, her face flushed with anger. This embarrassing display? Goodness, it's a disgrace!" Her voice rang out sharp like the crack of a whip. "Mrs. Thompson, it was an accident," Mary said, trying to diffuse the tension. Her own anxieties began to bubble again, reminding her of the judgment always concealed behind the elder woman's words. "Let's just clean it up."
But Mrs. Thompson wasn't done. "What were you thinking, Jacob? Who paints such nonsense when there is a gathering? Your painting may be enchanting for you, but there's more to consider." Her words sliced through the air, leaving bitterness in their wake. Mary felt Jacob shrink beside her, and her heart broke a little. He'd poured himself into that painting. It was his truth, his heart laid bare. How could he be met with such harsh criticism? "Excuse me, but that painting is incredible," Caroline interjected, stepping forward. "It shows love and resilience, and maybe we all could do with a little more of that instead of tearing it apart." A murmur of agreement rippled through the onlookers, igniting hope in Mary's chest. She saw the poignant expressions they wore as they shifted their eyes between the painting and the older woman, torn between loyalty to tradition and the warmth of fresh creativity. Mary pushed through to stand shoulder to shoulder with Caroline, emboldened by the support around her.
Jacob worked hard on this. It's not just a painting. It's a reflection of love in our family. It represents our struggles and victories. Mrs. Thompson faltered, blinking in surprise. The weight of the moment pressed against her, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Still, she held her ground. Art should uplift, not distract. We should remember who we are at these events. "Who we are is evolving," Jacob said, his voice brave as he spoke up for himself. He straightened his back, the remnants of his childhood slipping away. "I painted Lily because I see her strength. I wanted everyone to feel that, not just me." The crowd's quiet admiration enveloped them. For the first time, a flicker of respect came from their neighbors, and as Mary watched her son stand tall, warmth filled her soul. But just then, Mrs. Thompson regained her composure. "Evolving or not, it's not appropriate," she snapped back, her gaze cold as ice. The tension crackled in the air like a storm about to break. Mary felt the walls closing in again, the hopeful moment teetering on the edge of disaster. Would this be the moment they all dissolved back into silence? The stakes had never been higher, and as she stood for her family, she felt the ground beneath her tremble. Could they really hold on against this? Would they weather the storm together, or would Mrs. Thompson's harshness shatter the fragile moment they had begun to build? The air was thick with the weight of expectations and emotions, and as uncertainty clung to the edges of the gathering, another question lingered in Mary's heart. How could they stand united when the world seemed intent on pulling them apart? The tension was palpable as Mary glanced at Jacob, whose bravery shone through the cracks of fear etched across his face. She had watched him grow, nurturing his creativity and spirit, and now it was time for her to step forward, to protect him. "Mrs. Thompson," Mary began, her voice steadying, "it might be easy for you to call this inappropriate when you refuse to see what Jacob has created. You're looking at the surface of a painting instead of feeling the depth beneath it." The crowd leaned in, intrigued. Eyes darted between Mrs. Thompson and the vibrant canvas that almost glowed against the gloomy backdrop of the confrontation. Jacob shifted closer to Mary, his small hand slipping into hers. The connection sparked a resolve within her, a fire waiting to blaze. "I feel his emotions in every stroke," she continued, gesturing toward the painting. "It's not about traditional values anymore. It's about self-discovery and expression. Those concepts make us who we are." "But what about tradition?" Mrs. Thompson countered, her voice brittle. "What about the way things have always been?" "Tradition is not an anchor that traps us," Jacob said, his voice rising slightly, surprising even himself. "It should be something that helps us grow. We learn from our past, but we don't let it define us." A hush fell over the crowd. The murmurs of agreement started again, but this time felt different. It felt like a wave, cresting higher with every shared emotion and whispered support. As Mary looked into the eyes of her neighbors, she saw hesitation turn to understanding. Jacob's painting reminds us there's beauty in being true to ourselves, even if that sometimes means walking against the tide. "The world has changed, Mrs. Thompson," Caroline chimed in, her voice full of warmth. "And so must we, if we want to welcome the heart of our community spirit." Mary felt the surge of unity rising around her, the clench of her heart loosening as hope seeped in. She could practically see the colors in the air shifting, swirling around them like the paint on Jacob's canvas. Stunned, Mrs. Thompson began to falter. Her icy expression cracked, a flicker of doubt breaking through her resolve. "But, no buts," Jacob interjected. "This is who I am, and I want you to see that. I thought painting would be my way to show love, something like what this gathering is meant to represent. What's wrong with that?"
A quiet moment lingered as Mr. Thompson looked between Jacob and the shaken matriarch, weighing the atmosphere. Her judgment had always been cloaked in certainty, but today, for the first time, the air felt lighter. "Perhaps," Mrs. Thompson finally said, her voice gentler, the edges of her critique smoothing. "Perhaps I need to learn more about what this means to you. I've been too focused on what it should be, rather than what it is." The sound of her admission resonated through the crowd, a collective breath released. Hope threaded through shattered tensions, warming even the coolest hearts. A smile danced slowly on Mary's lips as she felt a glimmer of victory for her son, her family. "Thank you for acknowledging that," Mary replied, her heart lifting. "We're all learning, one step at a time." But just as relief began to wash over them, a sudden commotion broke out from the group gathered by the refreshments. A gasp flowed through the crowd like electricity as people began to scatter. Mary's heart raced again, an unsettling feeling returning. What now? She wondered, her stomach tightening. As she turned her head, she caught sight of a familiar face watching from a distance, and it sent a chill down her spine. She had never expected to see that face again, certainly not on a day meant for joy. "Jacob? Lily?" Mary's voice faltered. What was he doing here, and why did he look so determined? With a heavy heart, she was drawn to the realization that this quiet gathering was only the beginning of a much larger journey. Would they be able to face whatever storm was brewing next? The moment hung heavily in the air like an unfinished note, and Mary felt that the real test for her family was just around the corner. The tension crackled in the air, thick as a gathering storm.
Jacob and Lily exchanged glances, their confusion mirroring Mary's rising apprehension as they turned to see the newcomer. He stood at the edge of their garden, a figure from the past that neither of them expected to see today. Tom, the man who had once been a friend, now a ghost of their lives. Someone whose choices had cast shadows long and deep. "Tom?" Mary said, her voice shaky, as though each syllable weighed a pound. He nodded slowly, taking a step forward, determination etched across his features. "I came here to talk. I need to make things right." The crowd buzzed, whispers ricocheting through the attendees, questions rising like smoke. Mary felt her heart pound in her chest, panic chasing along the edges of her mind. This wasn't the way the day was supposed to unfold. "What do you mean, make things right?" Mary's voice trembled, torn between anger and the flickering hope that perhaps Tom had come to repair what had been broken. Tom ran a hand through his hair, glancing at Jacob and then Lily. "I know I hurt you. I hurt all of you. I thought I could just walk away and forget it all, but I couldn't. You guys deserved better. You deserve better." Mary's throat tightened. The gravity of his words fell like a stone into the still waters of their momentous day. "And what does that mean?" He stepped closer, sincerity in his eyes as they shone in the sunlight. "I could have been here for you. I could have supported Jacob in his art, encouraged Lily with her dreams," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I didn't. I was too caught up in my own issues." The air shifted around them, a palpable sense of vulnerability breaking down the walls they had all built. Jacob's eyes flickered with the kind of mixed feelings only family hurt can bring forth. He wanted to feel anger, angry at the man for disappearing from their lives when they needed him, but he also sensed a desperate need for healing, for understanding. "Why now?" Jacob spoke up, his young voice steady as he fought past the emotional tide. "You just want to show up when things are starting to go good for us?" "Yes," Tom said, desperation creeping into his tone. "Because I've realized it's not about me. It never was. I've wasted so much time, and I can't stand the thought of letting you down again." Mary felt her heart ache, torn between resentment for the absence and the glimmer of potential reconciliation before them. Healing isn't linear. It twists and turns. Sometimes it bears the weight of truths too heavy to bear alone. Just then, she glanced at Lily, who stood frozen, her arms wrapped around herself.
The words of others dimmed in the background, and Mary understood it was time for familial love to take center stage. Kids, this day is about community, a community that lifts each other up. And maybe that includes understanding when someone is trying to change. Jacob's brow furrowed, his youthful heart seeking balance amid the chaos. You think he can change, just like that?
Change takes time, Mary said softly, but it starts with owning the past. Lily stepped forward, her small stature somehow brimming with courage. If you really mean it, Tom, how can you show us you're here? What will you do? Tom took a deep breath, steeling himself. I want to help with the garden, he offered, his voice steadying. I want to dig in, literally and figuratively. I want to support you both in your passions, if you'll let me. The crowd had quieted, watching with bated breath. Mary sensed the hesitation in her children, the doubts still binding their hearts. But she also felt something shift, the air tinged with hope, a medium for growth. Let me start, Tom continued, sincerity pouring from his heart. I'll help with the garden, and I'll commit to being present. A community garden needs hands, and I want to help nurture something beautiful and shared. Lily hesitated, glancing at Jacob, and then back to Tom. You promise? Tom nodded earnestly. I promise. I know that's not enough right away, but I want to earn your trust, one day at a time. Mary could see the flickering light of possibility spark in her children's eyes, a glimmer of hope emerging from the shadows of their past. Maybe we can start today, with gigging. Together, she suggested, a smile forming on her lips. Together, Jacob echoed, enthusiasm returning to the surface, his earlier doubts soothed by the potential embrace of growth. Suddenly, a cheer erupted from the gathered crowd, embracing the spontaneity of the moment. Children began grabbing shovels and small gardening tools from the makeshift party supplies, laughter pealing into the air, and others shuffled forward, ready to lend a hand. Tom crouched down beside the patch of earth, a tangible smile on his face, the determination shimmering in his eyes. Let's dig in. In that instant, Mary felt the storms of yesterday begin to disperse. Together, amidst the laughter and chatter, they began to cultivate not just the ground, but a new chapter. A story that recognized the complexity of love, loss, and the determination to grow. Together, they filled the air with whispers of promise, a community breathing life into a garden that would blossom just as they would, one day at a time. As the sun set, casting golden hues across the flourishing yard, Mary realized the weathering of storms had brought them together. They had faced their fears, their doubts, and the shadows of the past, and emerged, not unscathed, but strengthened by connection. And just like that, the seeds of their love took root, bolstered by newfound understanding and unity. This was no longer just about a garden or art. It was about a family transcending their past, hand in hand, pushing forward into a future radiant with possibilities. Make sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let us know you're with us. We want to hear your reactions and feelings about the ending in the comments below. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.